we want to watch out for what I call I know syndrome. And I know syndrome is basically where we prevent ourselves from any sort of integration by claiming that we know better. And when we say we know better, what we're basically doing is holding on to knowledge. And this knowledge is an identity, which looks like, I know that this, and this happen. I know I'm infinite consciousness, but I still suffer. I know that this is the truth, but I still suffer. Whenever we feel any form of suffering that counteracts what we seem to know, right? Like, I know that I'm infinite, but I still right now feel as though I'm limited. What we're doing is preventing ourselves from actually being curious. We're going to come to this later. It's a very important point. The next thing would be to keep your heart in the highest place. What does that mean? To keep your heart in the highest place is to basically not be scared to suffer. So we close our heart. When we close our heart, we close our whole body from just experiencing everything that we know in our heart is true. We put a bottleneck on love. We put a bottleneck on experiencing love and expressing love. A closed heart is a heart that is scared to suffer. So how do we counteract a closed heart? Well, we open it. How do we open it? With our willingness to suffer. We have to give ourselves the freedom to suffer. If we give ourselves the freedom to suffer, we're pretty much unstoppable. So the next point, the third point, would be to desire truth, to be interested in truth over removing your suffering. So this is why an open heart is important, because our willingness to embrace suffering, our willingness to give ourselves permission. Embracing suffering doesn't mean like we try to accept it. It means that actually, if we're suffering, I'm just going to carry on suffering. That's what it means. It doesn't mean to accept it in the conventional sense. It's a very nuanced difference. If we're suffering, we just say, well, I'm going to suffer then. Fair enough. What else can I do about it? I'll just continue suffering. That's giving ourselves the freedom to suffer. That opens our heart. Because imagine the next time that you're not suffering, well, you're like, well, last time I did a really good job of suffering, so, I'll be fine the next time. So this opens your heart. You're not scared to suffer in the future anymore. When our intention is to desire truth, what happens is the desire for truth purifies all other desires. So if we desire to remove suffering, what happens is that's the essence of suffering. So one of the most discrete things that we have to notice on this path is whenever we're trying to do something with the intention of removing suffering, that is a never-ending path. Anything you do on that level is just you exhausting the petrol of your seeking energy. You're just exhausting the petroleum of all the seeking that is still yet to be done. That is just what's happening. You can escalate that process by this understanding I'm sharing right now. So you want to notice to what extent are you doing a thing in order to make sure that at the end of the thing, your suffering will be removed. The path begins with a desire for truth. The true path begins with a desire for truth. We've all had that. When we were young, when we were kids, the first thing that we cared about was truth. We would ask questions. We would want to know. We would want to understand. We were curious. But the problem was, as a child, we're building knowledge at that stage. Now our curiosity takes us to remove knowledge. So this process is about stepping into removing knowledge. We're now learning, just like we were as children, but we're learning now in order to remove the knowledge we created as children and as adults, and that we created on our spiritual path. And that's the process of understanding. We're removing and letting go of the knowledge and identities that we previously created in order to have this worldview. Now we want to enjoy the worldview, but we don't want to limit ourselves with it. We don't want to believe we are essentially this worldview and this body and this mind. That's what creates the suffering. An interest in truth should be the premise of our movement into this path. The next would be to have an open mind. How do we truly have an open mind? Well, let's look at what a closed mind is. A closed mind is a mind that fears death and that is trying to remove its suffering now. So the closed heart is something as fearing suffering in the future. A closed mind is suffering now. So they're technically the same thing, but they express in different ways. And this resistance to the now comes from that fear of death. And yes, you could also say that the closed heart and the closed mind are the same thing, but they're almost like different aspects of suffering in a weird way. So the closed mind that is currently suffering, which means currently resisting, is trying to remove suffering in this moment right now, you see? Whereas the closed heart is like protecting itself from a future event. And the closed mind is a mind that desires to remove suffering. So it's a mind that doesn't desire truth. In this moment, it doesn't care about truth, doesn't care about understanding itself. It isn't curious, it isn't wonderful, it isn't passionate. It just wants to get rid of the suffering it feels. Now, this can only happen if you don't know what suffering is. If you don't understand suffering, you won't understand freedom. Freedom lies in understanding suffering isn't actually there. And the freedom lies then in our capacity then to go into where we think the suffering is and to see if the suffering is actually there or not. All the time, whenever we check, it's not there. And there's not just not there, there's no entity there that can claim the suffering. Yes, we have a head, body, arms, but head, body, arms are not what we are. Sensations, perceptions, sight, smells, touches, they're not what we are. There's no center of what we are. In essence, we never really find that one. So, how do we counteract? What's the most direct way for this? It's a willingness to die, literally. There comes a time where you must be willing to die. Now, it doesn't mean you will, but you have to be willing to. So there's the two components, to give yourself the freedom to suffer and to give yourself the freedom to die. These are two fundamental components of this path. Because if you keep fearing suffering, you'll recreate the suffering now. If you recreate the suffering now, you'll want to get rid of it now. That closes your heart, then that closes your mind. Once your heart and mind are closed, you're not receptive to truth. If you're not receptive to truth, you're just a seeker again. You go back into the world of seeking. You continue doing the seeking stuff, basically getting no progress done whatsoever. And you continue doing nothing until you've exhausted the petroleum of your seeking energy, and then bam, you come back to where you're watching right now in this video where I'm telling you curiosity is the next step. Being curious and interested in truth. The path begins with curiosity. So willingness to die and a willingness to suffer. I say willingness, we don't want to actively look for suffering, but we want to have an attitude that says, if I suffer, I do not mind. I have my priorities straight. You see, I have my priorities straight. My priorities are truth. Yeah, I'm going to suffer, right? That's just what I've done already. I've lasted this long while suffering. I'm sure I can last a couple more years potentially, or a couple more lifetimes. But my priority is truth, and I have a willingness to move in that direction, despite what may come of it. You see, you need that level of devotion. That's true devotion. This is why the path of bhakti is so important, because it teaches you to surrender to something greater than yourself, right? When you're a limited, finite self, you believe everything's separate. Having something greater than yourself that can protect you, that's out there, that's looking at you and looking after you, it helps you surrender. You know, it helps you move into something greater than what you are as a finite self. So it's beautiful. We now just want to upgrade that, and we want its devotion to go towards ourself and towards truth itself and understanding ourself, and therefore to have a willingness to die for God. We can phrase it that way: a willingness to die for God, a willingness to die for truth, a willingness to suffer for God. Right? Obviously, God doesn't even make us suffer, but you understand the sentiment, I hope. You see, when you're suffering, what you say is, I just give myself the freedom to suffer. What more can I do? If I'm suffering, I'm suffering. Let's just suffer. What more is there I could do on that level? I'll just continue suffering. If I have no idea what to do, I'll just continue doing what I'm good at. You'll be very surprised at what happens when you truly adopt that attitude. The fifth is that we want to not cling to concepts as an experience. So this is also a sister of I know syndrome. What happens is, if we have any insight or understanding that comes in a form of an experience, or that comes with a form of experience, such as any awakening experience or any type of insight, that I am consciousness, that I am infinite, whatever it might be, whatever you phrase it as, typically what happens is there can be a phenomenal change sometimes, instantly. And what happens is we adopt the phenomenal change as what the truth was. So we look at the experience that changed and we say, this thing changed, my perception of myself changed, or this thing changed in this moment, that must have been the truth. And all of a sudden we try, because our mind, whenever we have an experience, it interprets it instantaneously. So, for example, when I had my first awakening, I thought, I am one with everything. That was the first way I phrased it. I am one with everything. So after that experience, of course, I thought because I'm interpreting it now with the limitations of my regular, normal, baseline conditioned mind, I am one with everything. So I, this individual self, am separately connected to everything that is also separately disconnected. You see what I mean? Like, that's how I interpreted it. So yeah, I am one with everything might be a true statement when I'm in the middle of experiencing that, but then the minute I start interpreting it, I am not one with everything anymore. I am one, I believe that I am now, this individual self, am connected with all these separate individual things. Do you see what I mean? Because I still have this level of conditioning that hasn't been worked through yet. This is why it's important to integrate the intellect. How do you do that? You basically retrain your mind to be absolutely curious and to live in the not knowing. You have to live in the unknown. So in other words, you have to take all your spiritual knowledge, put it in the trash, and completely start again. This is truly what the adventure mode is, what I talk about. This is from a 5th to 6th octave transition. The 6th octave, if you haven't seen my octaves video yet, I'll leave a link in the description where you can read the map. I can show you a video also, and so you can understand that. But this is a 5th to 6th octave transition. That 5th to 6th octave transition, the 6th octave then, this is kind of the fabric. You'll always be wonderful, right? You'll always find wonder and curiosity, and that's the baseline of this path. It's what I call the first form of thought yoga, curiosity and interest. The minute you're not curious and interested, don't even bother trying to do contemplation. Don't ask yourself, who am I, when you're not curious to find the answer. How pointless would that be, right? Who am I? But I have no care in the world as to what the answer is. I'm just looking as to whether my suffering will end if I get the answer. That's not really caring about the answer. If you're not caring about the answer, you're not caring about truth. So this is why you've got to come back to openness. You see, it's why these first teachings are important. What people do then is they create a concept of consciousness, such as they may experience consciousness and they'll describe it instantly after it. They'll be like, oh my God, consciousness is spacious and vast and empty. And all of a sudden they start to adopt spacious, vast and empty qualities as an objective experience. So spacious and vast, empty qualities inherent in the truth won't look like spacious, vast, empty. You won't look like you're a spacious, vast, empty vessel. It will be spacious, vast and empty will make you just express more as whatever your character naturally expresses as. You see, there's not going to be some type of like, I'm an empty, spacious, moving body now because I am adopting the qualities. Because it's like, think of light, right? Light is invisible to the naked eye, but we know if you refract it and limit it, you get very much something that doesn't look like what light looks like. It looks like the opposite. Light, you see nothing. Color, you see everything. You see? Light looks like nothing, but inherent in the light is everything, all the colors of the rainbow. So when you actually express, when there's a vehicle of expression for the light, it looks completely different to what light looks like. Light doesn't look like anything. It's literally invisible. And then all of a sudden you make it visible and it's everything. Our being is the same. So we want to make sure we're not trying to superimpose these limited infinite qualities, I call them. Limited infinite in the sense of like, I used to accidentally conceptualize what I am to this vast openness and create another infinite object and then behave like this infinite object and go to this infinite object. I'm going to my being, I'm being aware of awareness, and I'm just going to another infinite object, you see? And that made me feel numb and very like borderline depressed. Like depressed, but I'm not sad. It's just like depression, which is just, well, depression is never sad really. Depression is a complete suppression of what we are. It was a new spiritual depression. So if you ever feel numb, if you feel numb now, this is likely what might be happening. The sixth is to live in adventure mode. Living in adventure mode is basically to live in this complete wonder and curiosity and desire for truth. So adventure mode basically is every single teaching that I just shared with you. If you adopted all of those things, you would be living in what I call the sixth or seventh octave. The sixth octave is basically just complete spontaneity. There's no knowing. You don't cling to knowledge. You contemplate experience with genuine curiosity, genuine interest. You actually care about understanding. You care about understanding the nature of reality. You care about understanding yourself. You're interested in happiness, but not to remove suffering, but because it's just simply what you are. There's no reason for that. You see? You start to lose the reasons you have that you had before. In other words, your intention changes. Your intention is so important, because if your intention is to remove suffering, you recreate suffering. If your intention is truth, you don't recreate suffering. It's plain and simple. That's just what happens. Desire for truth is a pure desire because it doesn't come from a separate self. It doesn't come from the belief in separation. The desire to remove suffering is literally the desire for truth filtered through the belief in separation. The desire for truth in its pure form is not conditioned by a separate self. You see, but truth wouldn't desire truth. No, truth is pure desire. Truth in essence. We think of desires as like, I want this to get that. We have a limited idea of what desire is. Desire in essence is pure will. Pure will is pure God energy. Do you think the birds tweet without that will? Do you think the chairs chair without that will? You know, do you think that tables table without that will? Do you think people breathe without that will? Do you think hearts beat without that will? That will is literally whatever is creating the absolute of everything. So yes, that desire for truth, it's not really a desire for truth. It's just pure inverted energy that's going to yourself. That's really what it is. It's not, I want truth. That's how it looks like, right? On this cartoon physical realm. But what it really is just your inverted gravitational energy going to yourself instead of going into seeking and grasping objects in the world. That's really what it is. The last thing, the seventh thing, is to not get caught up with I'm done syndrome. So I'm done syndrome is the cousin of I know syndrome. So whereas I know syndrome is like, I'm still suffering, but I have all the knowledge. I have all the knowledge and I still suffer. What else can I do, guys? I've done it all. I've been here 10, 20 years. I've seen everything. I still suffer and I just have too much knowledge. It's like, that's I know syndrome. I'm done syndrome is, oh my God, I get it. I'm done now. I get it. It's done. It all makes sense. I don't have to do this anymore. Amazing, I can't believe I just ended seeking. I am done. And this is the energy of I'm done syndrome. I'm done syndrome is a hallucination of the individual self that instantaneously claims a end point to the adventure. So the adventure is an ever-perpetuating deepening of greater and greater freedom. It's like, you know when you're recording on a camera? Imagine you're recording, but you don't stop the recording, right? That's it. That's all that's ever been and all that ever will be. You click record, but this recording never was clicked. It's just recording. And that's it. You're in a place of receptivity and openness and curiosity, which looks like curiosity and wonder and awe and interest and passion. And then all of a sudden, the I'm done syndrome thinks that it's, oh, I've ended the recording now. I'm done now. I don't have to do that anymore. And we close off again. It doesn't feel like that at first because it comes with a genuinely elated experience. It comes from an experience that is actually true. You see, this is the craziest thing. This is how tricky this path can be without a guide who's been through these types of things. I've been through every single thing that I've put on this seven thing. I've been through it vividly, experientially over the past decade, every single thing in high definition. So I've seen this, not only that, but I've seen this for the last 2.5 years with people I've worked with. I've sat with people now, hundreds of people, for 2.5 years, there's not one thing on this list that someone is yet to go through or is going through or won't eventually go through. You see? These things are blueprints almost that I've found, that I've witnessed and heard from men and women very much wiser than me, you see, who have helped and guided me go through these things. So we don't get caught up in I'm done syndrome. The minute we claim I'm done, we claim that there was a start and then an end, and that there's an end to something. What would the ending be? You see? What would claim the ending to the thing? Now, we could say, yeah, there's potentially an end to suffering, but we want to transcend. Before we even care about the end or the start or the beginning or the whatever, we want to, if we're going to put an end to something, it's the end to having this sense of needing to end something. We want to transcend the level in which there is a level of progress. You see? Where we are at all of the time is where we are at. It doesn't go higher or lower, right? You either believe you're separate or you don't. But we need to get out of this level of thinking that's like, but when I'm not believing I'm separate, I'm more advanced. And then if I'm more advanced, that means I have less time suffering, and I love less time suffering, so I'm going to have an amazing time now because I don't have to suffer anymore. And then all of a sudden we start recreating this dependency again on not having something be there in order to continue going. And do you know what the number one trigger point is to know if this is happening with you? If someone gives you any sense of continuation on this path, if you get any sense, you'll feel triggered. You'll feel triggered by it, and you'll resist it. No, but I'm done. But I'm done though. No, but this thing is, you don't understand me. I'm done. And all of a sudden, you'll notice you were trying to qualify your I'm doneness. You wanted to share it and shout it off the rooftops. You wanted to share it with the world, right? The minute you want to do that, it's because your nervous system can't contain it. Your nervous system is not containing the experience, which means you're going to naturally go back into the same cycles because you're not ready for that understanding fully yet. Your body's not adapted to it. So there's no such thing as I'm done. I'm done never happens, because before you're done, you transcend the level in which things are done and not done and things like that. You're just in a perpetual adventure, a perpetual movement into greater and greater freedom. It always gets more free. You always get more happy. Don't know how, don't know why, who cares? I'm not complaining. You see? So everything gets deeper and deeper and deeper. If you think you've gone to the deepest depths, you've mistaken yourself, you see? So the deepest depths we want to understand. You don't get deeper than what you are, right? There's no deeper depth than that. However, there is, you could say, a realigning to that deepest depth that is infinitely deep, right? That's the level that I'm sharing that on right now, you see? Obviously, you can't get deeper than what you are, but you're never going to replicate what you are perfectly in this world, you see? No one has, not Ramana Maharshi, not Nisargadatta, not Jesus, not anybody who has ever been on this earth has perfectly replicated what they are in the physical world. And that process of, you could say, replicating is almost like an aligning process. That aligning process, just appreciate that there'll be a time where you'll be extremely happy and you won't give a crap. You won't care either way. You'll just be happy, you see? So you won't need to worry about that. But there will be latent tendencies. And if you ignore those latent tendencies, guess what's going to happen? You're not going to be happy. You're going to be bypassing. You're going to be recreating suffering again because your intellect isn't integrated. If your intellect's not integrated, you're going to think you're done. You'll go back into the same cycles, and everything that I just shared will have to repeat itself. You see? So these are the 7 steps. Hope you've had an amazing time on this video. I have a free community. In the free community, I can help you and take you through these types of steps. I also have a link in the description where you can read for free the whole map of the octave system, which I highly recommend. This will take you through every form of potential mistake that you will make on this path in order from being born all the way over to leaving what I call the 7th octave, which is the 8th octave, which is the 1st octave again, but now you're experiencing it anew, like a spiral dynamic, you see? Anyway, have an amazing day. Take care, guys.